All right, so I heard that we needed a little bit of help on the 4.1 investigation activity. So I'm going to walk you through a couple things with this assignment. And hopefully after you get the first few questions, then the rest of them will be easier. So the idea here for this lesson is that we're writing the equation y equals mx plus b with different given information. For the warm-up question, you are given the slope m and the y-intercept b. So all you would need to do is plug the slope of -2 and the y-intercept of 5 into m and b. So this would be -2x plus 5, right? And then same thing for part b. So that's all you're doing for that one. For number 2, it's a little bit more complicated because they don't give us directly the slope and the y-intercept, although the y-intercept is always shown in the graph. So here the y-intercept would be 1. Here the y-intercept is -5. Wherever it crosses on the y-axis, that's the b. So here the b would be plus 1. Now you need to figure out what the slope is. You can either do the slope formula or you can do rise over run. I like to make a little right triangle so I can figure out the rise over run. So here we would rise down 2 and then over 1, 2, 3, 4. So the slope is -2 over 4, which simplifies to -1/2. So then your equation would be y equals -1/2 x plus 1. The first thing you might want to do if it tells you that the equation is wrong is to look to make sure that you included x. Sometimes we forget to put the x in, and that can make it confusing when it seems like you did the work right. All right, so you would do the same thing here with the rise over run to figure out the slope of this one, but it'll be positive this time because it's sloping up. All right, so let's go ahead and do the third question. Now the third question says on a piece of graph paper. So you need to get out a piece of graph paper. Instead of having graph paper for me, I'm going to do this on Desmos graphing calculator. And you can do this on the graphing calculator for Desmos too if you want. You can't do it on your handheld graphing calculator, but you can open up Desmos graphing calculator if you don't have a piece of graph paper or if you just want to save paper. So you're going to plot the given point and then use the slope to determine the y-intercept. So here the point is -1, 3, and the the slope is -4. So we're doing the same thing. We're writing the equation y equals mx plus b. We already know the slope, but we need to determine what the y-intercept is, and we're going to do that graphically. So here, let me come over here. When you first open up Desmos graphing calculator, it looks like this, so it marks it in halves. If you want to get rid of that, then you can just zoom out once, and that'll make it go in ones. Right, so I kind of prefer to look at it like that. So here, let me graph my point, which was -1, 3. So over 1, up 1, 2, 3. And then remember when we were graphing lines in Edulastic, you would use the slope. So our slope is -4, so we would go down 4 and then over 1 to get another point, and then Desmos or Edulastic would kind of like automatically draw your line then after you got 2 points. We're doing the same idea here in order to find the y-intercept. So since we were able to go down 4 and over 1 and landed on the y-intercept, then, well, we've found the y-intercept. It's at -1. So we can come back to here, and the b would be -1, and the y equals is the equation just like you wrote from numbers 1 and 2. So you would put -4x minus 1. That's your y-intercept that you found. Okay, let's do part B because there's a little trick to it here for part B. So the problem, maybe I'll use green. So it's 6, 3 is the point that we're given. So over 6, up 3. And then the slope is 2. Okay, so that means, go 2, up 2, and over 1, and put a point there. But the problem is, if you keep going up 2 and over 1, you're not going to land on the y-intercept. So the thing is, if your point comes after the y-intercept, then you're going to need to go backwards. So instead of going up one and right one, we're going to do the opposite and go down one and left one. Now, after doing that once, if you still don't get the y-intercept, that just means you need to keep going. So keep going down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, down 2 over 1, and then down 2 over 1, and you'll land at negative, that point there. I don't know if you can see that because of this little thing. It's negative 9. So here, going back to here, your y-intercept would be negative 9, and then you would write the equation just like you did for part B. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to pause the video. Let me erase for the next questions. They're pretty much the same, except you're going to first plot the points and then use rise over run method to determine the slope. So before we were given what the slope was, and now we have to figure it out. So negative 2, 5, and 2, negative 1. So negative 2, 5, and 2, negative 1. So the rise over run method means going from the left point to the right point. We would go down. How much down and how much over do you go? This would be negative 6 over 4. Would you want to simplify to negative 3/2? Sorry, this is not writing very well. Negative 3/2. And then that would be your m. And then to get the b, you use this new simplified slope to go from this point. Always go at the point that's on the left of the y-intercept. So you would go down 3 and over 2, and then you'll reach your y-intercept. So that's how you would do that question. This question is similar, just a different y-intercept and different equation. And then when you get to number 5, remember that this function notation, which we kind of learned from the bonus question in your last test, that means, oh wait, no, that was not a bonus question. That was a regular question. But anyways, so f of x equals y, this 4 would be your x and 9 would be your y. So you would write it as a coordinate 4, 9. Okay, and then you would write the other coordinate, and then you would do the same process. Plot both points on your graph paper after you draw an x and y axis, and make sure your x and y axis actually lines up with the lines on the graph paper. Sometimes people don't make it line up and they do it sloppily, and then that won't be able to give you the right answers. Okay, so you do rise over run to figure out the slope, and then do it again to figure out use the slope to get the y-intercept, and then write your equation. All right. So I hope that helped. The rest of the questions are just repeated of what you did before. So this is like number 1, this one's like number 2, this one's like number 3, and this one's like number 4 and 5. So after you do 1 through 5, then the rest of them are just the same process. So if you have more questions, or maybe you're struggling because you're not sure why the question you're working on is wrong, then just shoot me an email and I can look at your specific assignment and what you're typing in wrong. All right. Thanks for watching.